Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Friday, May 24th, 2019. And let's get right to it. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about trust. We've talked about a lot of things recently. We've talked about Brexit. We've talked about this. We've talked about that. We've talked about all of it. But there's one main theme that runs through all of this, runs through all the political machinations, that runs through all of the issues surrounding all of the political changes that are happening, and why these changes are happening, and everything else. And it comes down to trust. It comes down to whether or not the people who are in charge of all this, do we trust them? Before we get too much started, I'm going to wait for a couple more people to pop into the channel. I would remind everybody that you can follow my work over tomluongo.me. You can also support my work over at Patreon, Patreon/Gold, Goats, and Guns. I would really appreciate it. We publish a monthly newsletter that helps the retail level investor kind of make sense of all this. I have it's all original material and a coherent portfolio management style to help you make sense of what I think is a world going quickly mad. So between those things and the other opportunities here, if you haven't watched me before, please give a like and subscribe down below. Please kind of hang with. This will get NSFW at times. It is what it is. I let it fly. I don't hold anything back. I'll probably say something you like and something you don't like. So let's get on to what we're going to say for the evening. So trust. Let's get back to trust. Trust is the thing. And trust is on trial this weekend in the European parliamentary elections. Trust is on trial every day in the financial markets. For those who don't understand don't understand the relationship between politics, geopolitics, financial markets, and all of it, understand that financial markets are simply a reflection of the trust that we place in the ability of the world today existing tomorrow, right? The whole free market, the whole of human interaction in the world is built on trust. It's built on the only way that we can plan for our future is to trust that our present is an accurate reflection of the conditions of our lives, that we can then turn around and make predictions, however bad, however ignorant of what's coming in the future. And I don't mean ignorant to be stupid. I just mean that we are fundamentally ignorant about the future. We make our best guesses about what's coming next. And without certainty, without any kind of any belief that what is today will most likely look similar to that tomorrow, we can't act. Human beings act with purpose once they understand what's going to come next tomorrow. And the uncertainty, for example, surrounding Brexit and the way that Theresa May has handled Brexit, and ding dong, the witch is dead and she'll be gone soon, thankfully. The uncertainty surrounding Brexit was the biggest problem with Brexit, with all of the Brexit negotiations and everything that's happened. Why? Because it creates this inability. It freezes everybody in place and says, we don't know what else to do. We have to get Brexit completed. But no one in the political class in Britain or in Europe wanted Brexit to occur, even though it was legally occurring. So they sabotaged it at every level. And Theresa May's refusal to give up on her withdrawal agreement created even more uncertainty. It retards investment. It retards people doing substantive and purposeful things with their money and their time. It freezes everybody in place. In the process, it also unveiled or revealed to everybody how untrustworthy all the members of parliament are, how untrustworthy the House of Lords is, how untrustworthy the people running Europe are. let's not even get started with the intelligence agencies and the media and everybody and all of these institutions that are supposed to circumscribe our lives to make our lives predictable and relatively safe. That's the whole purpose of why we put up with these frickin' people in the first place. We put up with the depredations of politicians and the taxes and the stupid rules and the regulations and all of this crap because it's supposed to bring some semblance of order that will allow us to make some accurate predictions about what's going to happen tomorrow. And if the political institutions are in flux and they refuse to do the will of the people, then the people can't act. And the longer they're unable to act with purpose, the more anxious they get, the more frustrated they get, the angrier they get. Because who can plan for their future? Who can have children in this environment? Who can plan for anything in this kind of environment? And it's not just Theresa May. She's just the most egregious example in Britain. Is the most egregious example of the loss of trust in our institutions. I've talked about this before. I've told you that I feel that we're on the verge of a massive global sovereign debt crisis and financial meltdown. Why? Because of a loss of trust and a loss of confidence in our institutions. We've got central bankers are changing their story left and right when for the last 11 years, the only thing that has kept, since the 2008 financial crisis, the only thing that has kept the global monetary system, which is fundamentally broken, and everybody who knows anything about this stuff knows and admits that it's all broken and it hasn't been fixed. But the only thing keeping it running is our continued belief that we can keep it running. And that meant that the central banks had to be coordinated. They had to be on the same page together. They had to not be fighting amongst themselves. And they had to project confidence and competence. And you don't have that when they make a radical U-turn in policy in 45 days. We've talked about this before. We've talked about this in the past. Those of you who are new that haven't talked about things like this in the past, this is why all of these things are going to continue. These trends that are in motion are going to continue in motion. And any attempt by the powers that be, by the people who currently control and run the political system in the United States and Europe and around the world, why the harder they try to hold on to their power, the more instability they're going to create, the more distrust they're going to sow. Because we can see them now. We can see their machinations. We understand what's happening. And when I look across the pond from Britain back to my home here in America, and I look at Donald Trump waging economic and political warfare against literally the entire world, not named Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, or Israel, I have to ask myself, at what point is trust lost in him? It's already happening. It's right in front of us. We see it reflected in the US dollar index. We see it reflected in the churning on the Dow. We see it reflected in his insane China trade policy. We see it in his ridiculous abreacting to media coverage of a statement by a former Secretary of State who didn't even say anything that horrible about Trump. And the media blew it up out of proportions. And Trump turns around and immediately has to react to it and call Rex Tillerson, of all people, unprepared. Man ran ExxonMobil, a real fucking company, Don, for 30 years. But no. Don's gone broke building a couple of casinos, 14, a couple of times. But he knows better than Rex Tillerson. We're talking about an infantile man baby running around, worried, constantly checking his image in the mirror. He's like, it's insane. And the more political capital he thinks he has, the more insane he acts while in office. I didn't think he could get worse until I've seen his behavior after the vindication of the Mueller report. And while it's pretty obvious at this point that he's going to enact revenge on everybody who dragged his name through the mud for the last 2.5 years, and on that front, I wish him well. But you don't take that frustration and turn around and apply it to the rest of the world. The rest of the world can't wake up tomorrow and go, wow, is Trump going to take his Adderall today, or is he going to, or are we, are we in the clear? Do you think maybe we can, I think maybe we could build that plant? I don't know. Trump might not take his Adderall. CNN may call him a Nazi again. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's wait until we see what happens. Let's wait. And that's what's going on. He's starting to freeze capital around the world with the way he's acting. The man is so obsessed with controlling the Overton window, we can't let it lapse for 24 hours. It doesn't matter whether you think China needs to be slapped between the eyes. It doesn't matter whether you think the world should be made safe for Israel. It doesn't matter whether you think the United States has gotten fucked by the previous administrations and the previous political order here. Doesn't matter. You still can't conduct global politics and global foreign policy as the leader of the world in the same manner that you negotiate a casino deal. Doesn't work that way. Every time something like this happens, everybody around the world is looking at the situation going, all right, that's enough. Let's start making contingency plans in case this thing runs afoul of Trump's ire. Or this thing. Today it's Huawei. Tomorrow it's, I don't know, Infosys. Because, we're outsourcing all our call centers. We've outsourced all our call centers to India, so we should bring those jobs back too, or whatever. Whatever's going to fit into his thing tomorrow. You destroy trust, and every time he does something like this, contract after contract after contract that would have gone to American companies doesn't. It's no different than the Bush administration implementing FATCA. Okay. Or the Obama administration threatening UBS and all the Swiss banks with swift expulsion over KYC and AML laws, know your customer, anti-money laundering laws, in the search for taxation, in the search for taxes. You create uncertainty. It makes it harder for Americans to do business overseas. Try going and opening a foreign bank account if you're an American. Makes me sick to my stomach, because trust is all we have. The entire world economy runs on trust. All human interactions run on trust. And if you can't trust that tomorrow you're going to be able to do business, doesn't matter whether you think the big prescription is right or not. Now I'm an ardent Brexiteer, but I'm also an ardent Brexiteer of, look, we told you, the British people told the EU what's going on. They could have easily ended the uncertainty 2.5 years ago. They could have been out of the EU 6 months after they voted, but they refused to do so. Yeah, it would have been 6 months worth of readjustment and pain. It would have been hard. But that's what it is. You don't argue for the status quo because it's right, because it's the status quo. And that could be the counter argument to my argument about Trump. But Huawei is not doing anything wrong, guys, other than refusing to allow the NSA to install backdoors in their hardware. That's what this is about. Huawei did nothing wrong except outcompete Qualcomm and Apple and Ericsson and everybody else. It's all they did. It's all they did. Because believe it or not, it's actually a well-run company that's just out-competing everybody, and it is now bigger than everybody else. And because of that, because its total addressable market at home domestically is 5 times as big as the United States. 4 times as big as the United States. And at some point, the law of large numbers takes over. And China said, no, you can't, you American companies can't get rich on Chinese labor and then extract all the wealth from it and take it home. You have to share the wealth with us. We do the same thing, by the way. FYI. Foreign companies just can't come in here and set up shop and repatriate all their profits. But we expect to be able to do that for everybody else. Because that's what Goldman Sachs wants. Because that's what Merrill Lynch wants. It's ridiculous. As I said to Garland Nixon this morning when I was on Fault Lines on Sputnik Radio this morning, I said, Martin Armstrong makes the point all the time that most of Trump's thinking on trade is completely antiquated because it's based on calculating the trade deficit, which is completely an anachronism at this point. It doesn't accurately reflect anything. It doesn't actually accurately reflect our trade because of the way it's done. Because of the way it's calculated. And if we actually calculated it for real, the way the trade is actually flows across the border, we would be running a trade surplus or something close to a trade surplus. And it's reflected in the currency rates. The Chinese aren't manipulating the yuan. They're just not allowing it to be manipulated by keeping their capital account mostly closed. Okay? I read a great article this morning from last year from Inc. It was about Tim Cook. Tim Cook laid it out explicitly and said, and the title of the article was Apple is in China not for the, Apple is dependent upon China and not because of the reasons that you think they are. It's because Tim Cook made it abundantly clear he can't hire the people needed to support Apple's supply chain and manufacturing supply chain in the United States. He couldn't get 24 people in a room to discuss that with him, whereas in China, he can fill a football stadium. His words, not mine. Okay? I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you think, what China you're visiting, he says. This is Tim Cook. Thinking that China's labor is so damn cheap, because it's not. It's just more efficient than ours. He gets greater value for it. All the way up and down the line, the entirety of the supply chain, not just the manufacturing, but the logistics, the moving, everything. It all gets done. That's why they're still there. Cook would be happy to move it back to the United States if he could actually hire people to do the job, to do the work here. And yet the way the trade balances is calculated, most of the cost of an iPhone, of the import cost of an iPhone, goes on the China side of the ledger. So, I mean, to people's comments about this, like Liberty Cat says, so Huawei uses Google, they spy. Well, of course they spy. Everybody spies because Google's spying. But Huawei's made it abundantly clear that, and you can, salt this to taste. I'm not saying that you should take them at their word, but you should more likely take them at their word about the U.S., since the U.S. doesn't want them to build the 5G data network around Africa. I mean, Steve Bannon's going on and on and on about how we've already lost Africa, and it's such a tragedy that the Chinese are going to take over Africa. And because Bannon is naval intelligence, and once naval intelligence, always naval intelligence. He's also a gun runner and a weapons dealer. So, let's not talk about how let's not, lionize Steve Bannon or anything. He's just talking his book. But Huawei's made it abundantly clear nothing has changed in 7 years since Snowden, that Huawei refused to install backdoors in their hardware for the United States. Period. That's why they're being persecuted now. And it's just an easy sell. Oh, well, they're spying on us through the Chinese. The Chinese, those dirty Chinese, are spying on us. We don't steal from people. Okay, everything that we accuse other people of doing. This is Alinsky 101. You don't think that Trump understands this stuff? You don't think that the people who are coordinating Trump's trade policy aren't Alinskyites, just like the fucking Clintons and Obama and the rest of them? You accuse the other people of that which you're actually doing. Always assume that anybody with power and money is doing exactly what they're accusing the other person of doing, because that's the easiest way and the surest way to deflect that criticism and deflect away any scrutiny of you, by attacking the other person. Alinsky works. It's evil and it's vile and it's vicious, but it works. Never forget that. And everybody has to get it out of their heads that anybody cares about any of this stuff other than for their own benefit. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about us. If Donald Trump gave a fuck about us, Donald Trump would not be doing what he's doing. He would have stood up to those sons of bitches in the White House. He would have told Netanyahu to sit down, and he would have fired his son-in-law Kushner. Got news for you. He hasn't done any of that. Theresa May didn't give a fuck about Brexit other than to stop it. She doesn't give a shit about one British person. She thinks she's better than them. And her job as a middle manager, just like David Cameron, was to do the bidding of the British upper class, who absolutely despise everybody below them. The House of Lords, all of them. They all despise all the common people, the common riffraff, who aren't smart enough to accept the fact that some pigs are more equal than others. That's what European integration is all about. That's what all this 3 years of nonsense about Brexit is all about. And that's what this stupid trade war with China is all about. All this ridiculous American exceptionalism. It's just racist bullshit. Yeah, they're worried about China's going to take over. Got news for you. It's already happening and you can't stop it. And you're certainly not going to stop it by spending $1.2 trillion more than you take in every year. Don. Fuck is wrong with you? So that's where we are. That's what this is about. That's where trust is being lost. And so many people have Huawei's phones are fantastic, but it's not about their phones. It's about 5G. It's about the infrastructure of the next generation of the architecture. Understand that 5G is going to change everything about the way we do business on the internet. All of the single points of failure, all the control nodes that they've spent so much time trying to concentrate in the hands of 3 or 4 or 5 backbone providers here in the United States. All that power goes away once 5G happens. Trump is too stupid to understand this. He goes out there and he tweets it, I don't care about 5G. I want to see 6G, 7G. I want us to be the best. Like, go fuck off. You don't have any fucking clue as to what you're talking about. Shut up, back away from the fucking iPhone, and go do some fucking work. TomTom says the trade war will have losses on both sides. Absolutely agree. Trump is lying about bringing back jobs. I absolutely agree. All he's doing now is destroying jobs. It's an economic war of attrition where citizens are the ones who suffer the most for economic hegemony. Exactly. As I said in an article a month ago, and I continue to repeat over and over again, it's the only kind of warfare where the bombs go straight up and come straight back down and explode on the people who launched them in the first place. All right, I'm done with my rant. I'm going to go back and check some of the comments and questions now, and we'll kind of where's the sauce on Bannon being an arms dealer? Watch George Webb. All right, so James says, pick the year it's over, 2020, 24. Do you want 5 more years to see the economy melt down sooner? I don't want to see the economy melt down sooner. Trump is creating the very uncertainty which will ensure the fact that the global economy has to collapse. People are hoarding dollars left and right. They're flying into safe haven assets like German bunds and American U.S. Treasury debt. This is not a good thing. He's pushed the amount of negative yielding debt back over to $10 trillion, so that it's more than it was 7 years ago. Bannon made bank paying Chinese gold farmers to farm currency in World of Warcraft. Wow. I must have already gone into head to head with Steve Bannon then, because I used to eat Chinese gold farmers for lunch when I played World of Warcraft. I go out to Fellwood and farm fucking demons and make on my warlock and just fear juggle 5 and 6 mobs and make all the gold farmers cry. They'd all leave. It was awesome. I just lock down the entire area and go, no, this is mine. I'm grinding gold now. Fuck all of you. It was great. In the years when all you had to do was tag a mob in order to win, the rogues couldn't keep up. It was fantastic. I can't wait for WoW Classic. I hate to say it. This is one of those things. I'm actually really looking forward to WoW Classic. I can get back to actually playing a proper warlock. Okay, so all right, let's see. What do we got here? That's really funny about this. Is get you guys get me going on World of Warcraft. It's pretty funny. Tweety Bird says she threw up a little in her mouth when May sprayed her stupid tears today. Yeah, crocodile tears of a traitor. My view on Nigel Farage, Jim Nicholas, is I think he's the most important political figure of the 20th century, the 21st century. I think he's going to he'll be prime minister. He will change British politics for good. If you listen to his stump speeches now, if you listen to what he's talking about, he's absolutely building the Brexit party to overthrow the House of Commons, and he's talking about reforming the House of Lords as well. He's going for the jugular. The European parliamentary elections for him are just a stepping stone. Get 40 to 45%. Shock the fucking piss out of everybody in the world, and then ride that into a general election. I put it out on my live stream from this afternoon. The last opinion poll about the general election had Brexit 1 point behind Labour. It was Labour at 26, Brexit at 25, the Conservatives at 22 for the general election, not the European parliamentary elections, which had the last polls had Farage at 38%. Got news for you. He does 45%. Those numbers will absolutely, and that was as of the 17th to the 20th. Forget it. He's already in the lead for the general election. He hits 35 to 37%. And he'll be able to either force a minority government or force a second general election until the Tories either collapse completely and get rid of all the remainers, or Labour completely collapses. That's where he is right now. Jim versus Helly, thank you very much. Says once again, amazing job with David Stockman. He's referring to my article, interview I did with David Stockman a couple of weeks ago. You have some impressive connections. To be honest with you, David Stockman is one of my patrons. It's the way I found. That's the way I got a hold of him. I had no idea. He was reading my work one day, and then he just signed up as a patron, and I'm like, that can't be right. And that was a little over a year ago. And then slowly but surely, we kind of, started emailing back and forth. Eventually one day he just emailed me and just said about some article. He said, dude, that was like the best thing I've read in weeks. Thank you very much. And then posted it on Contra Corner. And then we've just built up a rapport since then. So I really do, again, appreciate David taking an hour out of his time and being patient with me while we dealt with all the technical issues, because I completely fucked up the audio, but was able to clean it up enough to get it done. So I thought the interview went well. I'm trying to get a couple of other people for the podcast, and we'll see if we can get them to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. So yeah, Bannon is part of Cambridge Analytica. Yeah, exactly. He's caused problems both in the US and the UK. So let's see. May was installed in the hope to scare the Brits into changing their minds about leaving. It didn't work. Liberty Cat reminds us all that Trump is nothing more than Orange Obama. Let's see. So we had that one. Hayakaden wants 69G. Let's see. Where are we? Tom says he was a huge World of Warcraft junkie. Dude, I played it every day for 6 years. I finally quit right towards the end of Wrath of the Lich King. Fear spam. When we did 5-mans, I used to do a little dance, because we used to do like heroic shadow labs or whatever, and I like take the 6 pulls, and I would fear juggle 2 and seduce a 3rd and nuke a 4th, and I'm like, just don't worry about it, I've got this. I'm a one-man CC thing, it was like ... nuke seduce, and they just had it like, I would just say that in my head over and over again, because that was about the 12-second count, because seduce is on a 12-second cooldown. I just hit the seduce button and re-up the seduce so that it wouldn't break, and everybody was good, and we'd dot a couple people up, and then we'd nuke them a couple of times, and then we'd reseduce. I had a system. I was a really proper PvE warlock of epic proportions. I was in my rating guild. I was absolutely the guy that everybody wanted to bring to the 5-man to do that work, because now rating, I was very middling in terms of my DPS, but as far as control, no, there's nobody better. And I it's like one of the few things I can truly be proud of in my life, other than my daughter. All right, I did love Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King as well. Yes, Farage does want to shut down the House of Lords. He wants it. The last thing I heard from him is that he wants it completely overhauled. So let's see. To dissolve the house, yeah, he does. Japan makes great phones. They just cater to their own domestic market. That's also true. The carrier portability is far better than anywhere else. Yeah, the Japanese phone market is excellent as well. So there's that. Jim Rosatelli says to Tom, sorry about your dog from a couple of weeks ago. No, we haven't gotten a new puppy. I still have a couple of other dogs, but thank you, Jim, for the condolences. Calvin led a good life. He was a great dog. It is what it is. But we're starting to like move Cooper into the yard. I have 2 other guardian dogs, and since we're going to be moving for the most part out of the goat milking business, I'm going to keep a couple of my goats and just probably just raise a couple of meat goats every year now. But I only need 1 dog to cover that. Cooper can come into the yard. He's young. He's 18 months old. He'll be a great yard dog, and he's a lovely dog, and he's a great guy. And his mom can stay out in the field with the goats where she belongs. I'm buying stock in whoever makes Kleenex, says Liberty Cat. Well, so Sayanovic says, well, the thing holding the Brexit party out of power will be the splintering of parties and regionalism. It'll hold them back for a little bit, right? Jeremy Corbyn's going to push for a general election as quickly as possible, probably right after the Tories announce who's going to be their leader. Remember, now, Theresa May, the schedule of events is as follows. Theresa May is going to step down on the 7th, the day after the 75th anniversary celebration for D-Day. And then they'll have 30 days to put a government together, and pick a leader and reaffirm the existing government with so they have to put a government together. That means they're going to have to get the DUP on side and all of that stuff. If they can't do that, then then the government will collapse and they'll have a general election anyway. If not, even then, Corbyn will most likely call for a vote of no confidence, because he can, like I can see, that the polls are shifting away from him, and his best opportunity right now is to ride the disaffected Labour voters who've moved to the Lib Dems and to the Greens and try and win a general election by doing a coalition government with the three of them. That's what is going to be whispered in his ear by all the Blairites and all the Eurocrats, right? And right now they're in charge of the Labour Party anyway, because Jeremy Corbyn is a weak and ineffectual, feckless jackass. Just in case you were unsure of what I thought of him, he'll call for the general election because Brexit and the Conservatives will never do a deal. That will never happen. If there's one group of people on the planet that hate Nigel Farage more than the hardcore Remainers, it's the Tories. The Tory leadership will never cut a deal with Nigel Farage. So what they're going to hope for is that there's still a slim majority of the hardcore left, for lack of a better term, in Britain, between the Lib Dems, the Greens, and Labour, to cobble together a government to keep Farage out of power. And I think that their best opportunity to do that, given the mood of the country right now, happens as quickly as possible. Because if this goes until October, it'll slip away from them. Farage will move up into the 40% range, and then there's nothing anybody can do. Corbyn, as I just laid out, may be PM by August. That doesn't mean that he will remain in power for very long, because that will be a very uneasy alliance. They will force him to go for a second referendum. They will force him to betray Brexit even harder. And if that occurs, and that will only force an even more untenable situation. I don't think that will happen. Okay? I think that that's their best plan. That's their best bet, but I don't think that it's real. Okay? Let me see what else we got here. Will your forecast hold for the demise of Deutsche Bank this coming week? Oh, I don't know about that, but it may happen. Deutsche Bank is definitely on the ropes. They're definitely in a very, very precarious situation. Stoyanovich reminds me, going back to Brexit, that the Conservatives are terrified of Corbyn and may just cut a deal with Farage if they need to in order to stay in power, even though they hate it. It's very possible, but I'm still I don't know. The likelihood of that happening, given the number of regime regime first guys that are in the Tories, I don't know. What I can say is I still maintain that the ERG has a lot of political power now, and most of their political power centers around them jumping ship to the Brexit party during any general election, depending on how the polls are breaking. Because if the Conservatives continue to collapse, then the ERG and their 30 to 50 seats, however many it is, the hardcore Brexiteers, they take their hardened 80 to 100 seats, and they pledge themselves to Farage. Farage will go from 25 or 27 or 28% to 45 or 50% overnight, because the people will then see that as a viable plan to get a stable government. So that's what Farage has to do now. Farage has to now begin the process of reaching out to Owen Patterson and Jacob Rees-Mogg and the rest of them, and start to build behind the scenes, build that relationship now in preparation for a general election. That's what he needs to start doing. North on 60 says that Vesey is reporting that there was an alleged phone call from Sergei Skripal to a family member in Russia. They have not confirmed it was actually him. Well, that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that at this point, but thank you for letting us know about it. Let's see. Tom, do you see any escalation with Iran coming? Depends. And let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about the other side of Trump's trade war, which is Trump's war with Iran. Now, we did get 2 bits of bad news. If you are hoping for Trump's, like I am, hoping for Trump's war on Iran to fail, because I think that giving Israel what it wants is not conducive to long-term peace in the world. But both Turkey and India said in the short run, they're going to stop imports of Iranian oil. Now, whether or not that Iranian oil is going to be bought by the Russians and the Chinese, rebadged and then sent back and then re-imported by both of those countries, that's anybody's guess. The real numbers are the real worry here. The real information will come when we get the Iran's export numbers. But do I see any escalation from here? It depends. And it depends solely on whether or not Trump starts to signal that he doesn't actually want a war. And the people who are pushing for war, the Israelis, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the neocons, stage a false flag, pin it on Iran, and then get the ab-reacting fucking orange ape to do something stupid. But the truth of the matter is that first we heard 120,000 troops, and then Trump said, it'd be much more than that if I was actually going to go after Iran. And then it was 10,000, and then it was 1,500, and the reality is that they're sending an extra 600. There was the U.S. is only putting another 600 troops into the entire Middle East. That's not enough for any kind of real physical confrontation with Iran. So everybody might have gotten the message that Iran can stop upwards of 8 million barrels a day flowing out of Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And the minute that happens, everything changes. The first oil tanker goes down, insurance for oil tankers goes through the roof, the whole market collapses. Mega Hello says war with Iran would end the American empire. Never get involved in a land war in Asia. Are they really that stupid to start this war? Bibi Netanyahu is. He can taste victory. He's a very dangerous man. And Trump is just stupid enough and just limbic enough to give him what he wants. Who would stand Pompous Pompeo in Game of Thrones? Everybody? Okay. Putin's not being stupid. Putin is actually not laying low at all. Putin is very smartly letting everybody, having talked to everybody, he's let them know exactly where everybody stands, which is that the Russians are not going to stand aside. They're not going to allow the United States to destabilize Iran and turn it into a friggin' nest of vipers and a breeding ground for fucking ISIS and Sunni radicals to move up and destabilize all of Central Asia. The Russians will stop that dead cold. And Pompeo came out of his meeting with Lavrov and Putin visibly shaken. I'm sure that he was told flat out that the Russians will do what needs to be done in a way that the U.S. is not prepared for. No one in the United States government, nobody wants to see a U.S. aircraft carrier go down. Elijah Magnier made the very, and I think Moon of Alabama may have made the same point. No, the Saker made this point. He said, look, if the U.S. was really serious about going to war with Iran, they wouldn't have put aircraft carriers and B-52 bombers in range of Iran's missiles. They would have staged them off as far as way, because they've got, I mean, the B-52s have got range on everything that Iran could possibly throw at them. Same thing with the aircraft carriers. You wouldn't put them in theater so that they're sitting ducks. So a lot of this, I think, is just jerking off in order to pressure Iran and pressure everybody into thinking that the U.S. is so serious that we have to now, we want this to happen so that Iran will stop supporting will stop supporting Hezbollah and everybody else. And it's not going to happen. They're going to continue to do exactly what they've been doing. If Iran has the ability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and I believe it will disrupt global oil supplies, you have to be a religious dispensationalist to go through with all this. Yeah, yes. Shutting down the straits is not as important as sinking an oil tanker or two and possibly an aircraft carrier. Because even if the United States then retaliates with everything they have and carpet bombs Iran in response, in a just a fit of lunacy, once the first aircraft carrier goes down, all the rest of them are targets. All right, I'm way behind on comments, by the way, just so you guys know. I'm gonna skip forward a little bit. Yeah, you have to. Juan Isaac reminds us that evangelical Christians base their whole eschatology on the second coming of Jesus in Israel. So evangelicals vote for Trump the most, so Israel can be taken care of. That is the biggest worry. Mark Scheer says there would have to be a draft, and that would tear this country apart. Yeah, to get a quarter. Well, yeah, I mean, we're never going to draft. We're never going to draft anyway. Did Lavrov say to stay away from Venezuela? Yeah, he did. He told them that, tough shit. We're still getting that the Russians move more advisors into Venezuela, or troops, whatever you want to call them, right after Pompeo's visit. So, Russia and China will be in the background supporting Iran. They already are. Yes, Pompeo is a religious nutcase. And that's the problem. You've got religious nutcase on one side, Pompeo. You've got religious nutcase on the other side, or cynical, warmongering, racist fucking Netanyahu on the other side. That's just like, I'm opening a bar called the Eschaton, for Christ's fucking sake. Okay? Yeah, they had to back off Venezuela because, we look like a bunch of fucking retards. Unbelievable. Why did Venezuela fall out of the news? Because we lost. That's why. Commodity Steve asks on DLive, why did it fall out of the news? Because we lost. So I know the evangelical eschatology is false and fake and wrong, North on 60. I know they're nuts, and I know that Pompeo is nuts. I agree with you. I'm just telling you who they are. Okay? Wish you could put it. I understand. Well, I mean, you can always, So, I mean, for those of you, Standard Dev says, I just wish I could put it in the swear jar. I'm like, well, there's always, crypto. There's always other things. There's always donating through Brave or PayPal or whatever. I'm flexible. So, but, there it is. Steve Pasenik said Bolton sucks at regime change. Look, you don't have to be a fucking ex-insider to know that. The guy's terrible. Hey, Tom, what about Bernie 2020? Bernie doesn't have a chance in 2020. And you don't want Bernie Sanders. What you want, if you, of anybody on the left, the only one who has a brain in her head is Tulsi Gabbard. The problem is not that they are religious, but nutcases. It's just that they don't understand the material. I agree. Mark Scheer says, it must be understood that Israel is not our friend. We don't have enough volunteers. It would have to be a draft. Nobody's joining these days. It's amazing. So it's amazing how I was just talking to a friend of mine this afternoon about this, and he said it's amazing that they're still able to get any one president to spend more than 1 minute thinking about the Middle East. I mean, hats off to AIPAC, but Jesus. Yeah, I think we're just Stoyanovich just noted, I think that I don't know how many people are following on DLive because I can't see that, but between DLive and YouTube, I think we're over 100 people tonight. So that's good. It's great. It's, been slow, but we're back to that level of having a significantly good crowd. So 2020 Volt Tulsi, America needs a woman's touch. America needs a woman's touch who's been in the military, seen combat. The only thing I don't like about Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm going to be other than her rampant leftism from an economic perspective, is the fact, and again, I keep saying this, is like, I wish she was a mom. It's so very important to be connected to humanity that way. She should be a mom. I mean, honestly, I mean, if Gabbard lights the world on fire at the first debates and like goes from polling 1% to polling 12 or 15%, like overnight, she should immediately like next cycle, she should get pregnant if she's capable of it. I don't know why she doesn't have children, but I'm like, how fucking awesome would that be? She should run pregnant. It'd be fantastic. I would vote for. I'd stump on the fucking street corner for her. Again, me and a friend of mine. I'm hardcore libertarian, right? My friend is, hardcore conservative libertarian. The two of us are together. Like, if Rand Paul and Tulsi Gabbard got together and ran, I'd be stumping on street corners for fuck's sake. I haven't done local politics, stumped on street corners, held a sign, waved to people in 15 fucking years. But you goddamn know that if those two were running for president, I would do so. Hillary was a mom, didn't help her. I know it's no guarantee, but you know, Hillary already sold her soul before she became a mom, so it didn't matter. I don't think Tulsi Gabbard's in that same thing. So what I'm worried about with Iran strictly comes down to somebody itching for war sets up a provocation to create the conditions to get Trump to fly off the handle, because it's not like we don't have precedent for him doing something fucking stupid with missiles to prove to everybody how big his fucking dick is. Bolton claims, so Storm says, Bolton claims he has deep, serious intel on Iran regime threats. Those are reports. Yeah. He scribbled them down on his yellow pad and then says, look, I've got reports. Sputnik says nutcase Bolton has intel that Iran is a serious threat, but this time it's deep and serious. Oh, okay. Yeah. If Tulsi can come to keep us out of war, she's welcome. But Margaret Thatcher was no dove. She was quite a warrior. I know. I'm not saying that it's necessary. Look, I'm not saying that it precludes the possibility of her not. Look, that being a mom is no guarantee of a reasonable leader. But we see what it looks like when we know what it looks like when they're not. We get Theresa May, we get Angela Merkel, we get that thing that runs New Zealand down there, though she's a dude, and the rest of it. Okay, it's seriously, but it on the other side of it, if you are a person of conscience, and I think Tulsi Gabbard is a deeply conscientious person, big 5 pillars of personality thing. I think she's a deeply conscientious person, and I think that person who's also a mom is the right mix. Hillary Clinton doesn't have an empathetic bone in her body. So. All right, let's see what I've got here. I can't. I'm not saying that motherhood is for. And Liberty Cat says that she's not a mom and she didn't think it was. She did so for smart reasons. I don't think everybody is cut out for. I don't think every woman is cut out for motherhood. I think that's very obvious. But at the same time, I don't know. I know that, you know, being a dad's the greatest thing in the world. It just is. You know, it just is. And I was working this morning. I got done with the live stream this morning. I went downstairs to check on Camille and make a cup of coffee, and you know, before I sat down to start writing again. Was chatting with Camille, and Camille said to me that, you know, Sophie forgot her bathing suit today because their school's almost done. So her school, I guess, just right before the end of every school year, they run a big water slide, and they cut out early, a couple hours early on the Friday before the end of school, and do this. And Sophie forgot her bathing suit, and right as we were talking about that, and you know, she's not due to go pick her up for a couple of hours, phone rings, and it's Sophie. Hey, I forgot my bathing suit. If you wouldn't mind, could you come pick me up early so I don't have to wait here for 2 hours? I'm like, if it wouldn't be too much trouble. She was awesome. She asked so politely because she knew it was she knew that it was an inconvenience. And I said, oh no, hon, I'm between projects right now. I'll come down and pick you up now. It's fine. And then Camille said, well, why don't you just bring her a bathing suit and a towel? And you know, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I'll bring stuff down to her, and you know, and I'll just, you know, bring my laptop and go over to Wendy's and get some lunch, and I'll do my work over there, and then I'll pick her up and I'll take her home. And I got down there and I walked, and I drove up, and she's all waiting for me, and she's like, you know, just got all of her shit, and she's waiting for me. And I'm like, by the way, she's like, but you drove all the way down here. I'm like, I can go work for an hour and a half, but I can go work for an hour and a half. If you want to go hang out with your friends for an hour and a half and go have fun, here's your opportunity. She's like, logistics, move shit around, get her taken care of, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I love being a dad. Freaking awesome. It's like little moments like this, little things that you do during your life. These are the opportunities you have to, you know, these are teachable moments. It's not even teachable moments. These are those moments where you just go, model good behavior, should come back to you. I'm beginning to think that Trump is even dumber than George W. Bush. It must be the aspartame from all the Diet Coke he drinks. There you go. Gabbard would be great. They will Game of Thrones her if she ever gets to be that important. I agree. Gabbard needs a Wonder Woman costume. Not saying anything. Already seen her in the surfboard thing. Not saying anything. All right. We need moms who love their children so much that they will not allow the MIC warmongers to destroy the world and their children's lives. I'd do it if I was able, but even if they killed me for my daughter. There you go. Let's see. It seems the whole thing is a paradox. You can't do anything without cutting throats. What politician can do that? They're supposed to make things better. Yeah, they're never going to make things better. What do you think about government involvement in healthcare? I think it's been a complete and utter disaster. But we spend so much money on healthcare right now that we could actually get away with giving everybody freaking Medicare for all, and I think it would still be cheaper. That's how fucking cocked up the system is. And don't ever doubt for a minute that wasn't the fucking plan in the first place. But no, the healthcare system is almost beyond repair at this point. Commodity Steve asked me over on DLive, when does inflation hit? After the deflationary wave is over. We're still in a deflationary wave, and we won't get out of the deflationary wave until we've gone through a dollar super cycle high. and then the inevitable rollout and collapse after that. Once the dollar gets so high, after the capital all rolls in here, fearful of what's going on in the rest of the world, and then when it leaves the United States this next time, it's not coming back, and that's when the inflation hits hard. So it may not be for another 3 or 4 years. That's the short answer. Read the newsletter every month, and I put more meat on those bones. Trump has not started 2 fighting wars yet, but fighting economic wars on multiple fronts is not smart. Waging a war on 2 fronts, only an idiot wages a war on 2 fronts. Only the heir to the throne of the kingdom of idiots fights a war on 12 fronts. Why can't we just build a huge swarm of drones to free Iran from the theocrats? Because that's not good enough. You still have to be able to. Why do you believe that will actually free them? I have to go to. Juan Isaac says he has to go to Mexico to get his dental work done. And I'm sure it's better and cheaper. If Trump wins in 2020, will the wall happen? Please don't make me laugh. So I'm not on board for Medicare for all. I'm a libertarian. In the shorthand, I'm a libertarian. I believe in free trade. But at this point in time, I've got bigger problems. I'd vote for Tulsi Gabbard purely because she understands what the big issue is first in order to save the country. And then we can start fighting about the little stuff later. It's the same thing with Nigel Farage. People on the left are willing to vote for Nigel Farage because he's willing to fix the country and save the country from the globalists. Okay? Same thing with Gabbard. Gabbard gets it. She understands what the fucking problem is. Now, once that happens, and once we balance the budget, and once we come to the realization that we really don't have as much money as we think we have, then I don't know that we actually have the money for something like Medicaid for all or anything else. Brundlefly, thank you very much for saying that you love the channel. I do appreciate that. Trump will never build the wall. No, he won't. I got about a minute or two before I'm going to go, guys, because it's about a minute. It's getting towards that time. Actually, many U.S. trained dentists work in Tijuana. It's all cash, and so the taxes are minimal. Good for them. Good for them. Tulsi Gabbard would nominate lunatic judges to the Supreme Court. Do you really think the Supreme Court fucking matters at this point, Brundlefly? Our politics is so broken, the only thing that will fix it is secession and a breakup. But that's for a different. That's a discussion for a different evening. We don't have that. We don't. The inertia and the barrier to entry to the political game in this country is so high. There's no way to reform it through the political system. In Britain, they can start a party and have it take over in 6 weeks. We can't do that. It's not possible. So, yeah, guys, I appreciate everything tonight. You guys have been great. I've had fun with the stream, but I'm getting tired and it's about time to go. So we're at 1 hour and 3 minutes. I don't like to go much longer than that. So, last thing to ask Guilty Spark, do you think Israel actually believes Iran is a threat to them, or are they just warmongering for the hell of it? The latter wouldn't surprise me. I think it's a mix of both. It's this crazy Zionist crap. There's also the desire to destabilize and destroy Russia. That's also very much a part of the whole neoconservative mindset. There's a whole weird thing happening between the neocons and the Russian Jews and all that stuff. So, but that's stuff I don't want to get into right now. Certainly not. So, really appreciate everybody stopping by tonight. As always, if you like what you heard tonight, please give a like and subscribe down below. Anything I've said related to markets, just remember that this is all informational and I'm just some fucking asshole on the internet with an opinion. So, go talk to your financial professional. Other than that, I think that's a stream. If you guys want to donate to the stream, or you want to donate to me, I don't monetize the channel because fuck Google. So there's plenty of other ways to do so. There's crypto links in the description down below. You can also join the Brave browser and earn BAT through the use of the browser, and then you can contribute to your favorite YouTubers and your favorite publishers that way as well. And of course, there's always PayPal and my Patreon. So plenty of ways to take care of it. I appreciate everybody who does, and I love you all because, well, you keep me independent. The fact of the matter is that I make enough money to do this full time. I work from home, and I'm free and I'm independent. as long as, they don't take away my payment channels. So for as long as I can stay on the air, we're going to do this. You guys take care. You have a great night. You be well. Have a great weekend. We'll do this soon, Monday night, 8 o'clock, and maybe sometime over the weekend. Be well. Keep your stick on the ice.